Have you ever been in a church service where the sermon seems to drag on and on and on? Maybe you're the guy that's delivering that sermon. You're preaching your heart out and you're watching as your audience is slowly drifting to a place where they're not catching a single thing that you're trying to communicate to them. What do you do? Today, we're going to talk about sermon preparation. I know you're probably thinking, sermon preparation? Pastor, if my audience is falling asleep, shouldn't I be more concerned about sermon delivery? While sermon delivery is important, if you don't have anything to say, it doesn't matter how you say it, you're going to lose your audience. A sermon that is constructed well is going to hold the attention of your audience, and then your message is going to be communicated. At the end of the day, you want your message communicated and you want lives changed. I'd like to give you several things to consider as you develop your sermon. First, let me mention your starting point. I've been asked often where I find inspiration for the subject I've just preached on. Did you hear someone else preach something similar? Did you get it from a book? Perhaps the internet? Sadly, we live in a get it as quick as you can society, and unfortunately, this has found its way into our pulpits. Get it quick and just enough to get by are deadly practices for any preacher. Always remember, our congregation expects to hear from God, not us. And God wants to feed His children, and He knows what each of us needs. Therefore, my inspiration must come from the one that I'm speaking for. The starting point for every sermon starts with prayer. Lord, give me direction. In my own personal experience, that prayer is answered during my personal devotions. God really does communicate through His Word. Sometimes He gives me an idea and I'll jot it down on a scrap piece of paper. I'll meditate on that thought. Before you know it, we're off and running. Secondly, you need to know your vision. It's at this point in my preparation, I already know where I want to end up. That place is the place where my audience must make a choice. Entertainment should never be the focus of your sermon. Decision is where you want to end up at. Whether I have 1 point or 10 points, each of those points must complement that vision. Sometimes each point will be a decision point in itself. And sometimes each point is just a stepping stone to bring my audience to a single decision at the end of the message. This can be difficult, but if you stay on point without wandering from the vision, it can be quite effective. And that leads me to the third point. Keep your dialogue flowing. Too many rabbit trails are your enemy. Rabbit trails lead the audience away from the vision, and many preachers wander off their path and never really return. This confuses your listeners, and they lose the vision of your message. Your rabbit trail is probably good, but is it necessary now? Perhaps this information is best left for your next sermon. And also connect your points in such a way that it's easy for the congregation to recognize the path. With that in mind, don't be afraid to let your message evolve. Perhaps at the starting point of your sermon, you had a vision and 3 main points. You think that your task right now is to fill in the dialogue under each point, trying to make them flow with the last point. But what happens when you're preparing and something else is revealed as you study? Something you didn't consider in the beginning. Don't be afraid to change your direction. The 3 points I started the preparation with are not always the 3 points I use. When I study, often the Lord directs me to an area that I hadn't even thought about. But never forget, as your sermon evolves, you must maintain your flow. And then finally, always close with a challenge. Without a challenge, you've just given another boring lecture. From the initial stages of your preparation, you've been waiting to get right here. This is the place of decision. Make the most of it. Give your audience a reason to come to the altar. I always consider the invitation the most important time of our service. People are saved at the altar. Decisions are made at the altar. Lives are changed at the altar. The altar is the place that we can respond to what the Lord has been speaking to our hearts about during the message that we've just heard. So, preacher, please give people a reason to come. I hope these few moments will help you. And it's my prayer that God will bless you and that your next sermon will be the best sermon you've ever preached. If you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Or follow our Facebook page. It makes a tremendous difference in reaching others. May God bless you, and again, may your next sermon be the best sermon yet. See you next time.